Joining us from Sports Illustrated, our buddy Albert Breer is back here on the program. How are you, Albert?
I'm good. Happy Halloween. I couldn't get my Connor Stalions costume together fast enough.
Look at you.
Well done, Albert. Well done.
I see all the signs. Hey, man, I don't know what the hell. Was he on the sideline at Central Michigan, Albert? Is that what they're looking into?
He looked like that.
What the
that
hell?
Looked like black. Hey, that looked like Black Ops, Rich. Like he had like a goatee. Like didn't he look like
so
a guy?
Stupid. It's so stupid. When it all comes down to it, I need to know how this guy got involved and why he was anywhere within 300 million miles of Schembechler Hall, to be straight up with you, Albert. And yeah, look, we deserve all of the jokes and all that sort of stuff that's coming our way. And then, like I said, Albert, and I'll just say it since you brought this up to start, the way through is beat the crap out of Purdue, and then we take care of business the next 3 games. And then we'll find out if Ryan Day's brother really was the one looking into Michigan. You know, we'll find out who ordered the code red.
You're deep on the internet there. You're deep on the internet.
You know what, Albert?
Rich.
We'll find out all these answers to it. You know, and honestly, you know, I don't know what the sign was of Donovan Edwards running all over your defense 2 years ago, but we had that sign. So how about that?
Yeah.
How about that? Look at you.
Well, I'd like a different result on November 25th. We can agree on that.
Okay, pal.
Anyway,
what a way to start. What in the world are the Arizona Cardinals up to with their quarterback position right now? What's going on?
I think their intention is and their intention has been to get him back out on the field at some point this year so they can gather more information on him and make a well-reasoned decision at the end of the year on which way they're going to go. Now, I know everybody thinks like they're going to wind up with a first or second pick, and they'll wind up with Caleb Williams or Drake May, and Kyler Murray will be gone, and that's I very well could be the result. I think it's sort of an interesting place they are today too, Rich, if you look at it, because Monty Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon don't have the roster anywhere near where they need it to be right now, but they've gotten great effort. I mean, I know you've paid attention to this. They play their ass off every week, and they may be 1-6, but they're in every game. And they're getting great effort out of their guys, and so they do have some players on their roster that potentially other teams would be interested in. I think certainly DJ Humphreys or a Budda Baker, Hollywood Brown. There are guys there that other teams would have an interest in. And they're balancing that with, they also want to reward the players who are there, and let them know like, hey, we appreciate what you've done, and we want to give you the best chance to win games going forward. So they're sort of in that in between where it's like clearly they're building for 24 and 25 and 26, but they've also gotten such great effort and they've got good momentum in that building right now, just as far as like laying a foundation that, I think they are cognizant of what, clearing the decks again, this week could do. And so, I think Kyler Murray would certainly fit in that category.
Yeah, I guess I hear you, but I mean, it's like, Murray's not playing next week. And then the next day it's like, he could play next week. It's Joshua Dobbs, who we got from the team that we're playing this week. He's not playing. And it's either Kyler Murray, who's not on the injury report, or the rookie we were uncomfortable going into the season with. Is Murray on the block as we're talking right now? Do you think?
I mean, I think they would. Yeah, I mean, certainly I think they would listen. I just don't know who's going to trade for him, Rich. I mean, I know it's fun to put him on the Falcons or to put him on the Vikings, right? But look at that contract. I mean, he's making $46 million a year. So let's just say hypothetically you're Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith in Atlanta. You've waited 3 years now to really go all in on a quarterback, and you haven't done it yet. You traded away Matt Ryan after year 1, of course. And if you trade for that contract now, you're tying your job security to Kyler Murray. It's not just trading for a guy for right now because of his contract. You're tying your livelihood to the guy, right? Same sort of goes for Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah in Minnesota. If you trade for Kyler Murray today, you may not get another swing at the quarterback position. So you better feel pretty strongly that that's the guy going forward. So, if Kyler Murray we're still on a rookie contract, you might be able to move him today. You have a shot to move him. But the fact that he's making the money he's making, and the implications of that on a team trading for him, I think I mean, maybe would make him a non-starter for, I think, just about every team in the league. So even if they had a desire to move him today, and I think they would listen if somebody offered him something, the contract would make him very, very difficult to deal.
Albert Breer, MMQB from Sports Illustrated, senior writer right here on the Rich Eisen Show. How about the Bears being buyers today? What's up with that? What happened with Montez Sweat and the Bears? With the Commanders.
It's interesting because like that is a situation where guys, I think people would agree that the Bears brass, they're fighting for their jobs. Now, Ryan Poles might be in a little bit more comfortable spot than Matt Eberflus is right now, but they need to show something over the back half of the season. So, certainly I think that that's a part of it, is that you want to be better in the here and now so you can keep your job. But there's also, I think, long-term logic to it too. Look, the fact is, a pass rusher like Montez Sweat doesn't make it to the free agent market, right? Like you could look at it and say, okay, well, Brian Burns is going to be a free agent after the year. And Danielle Hunter is going to be a free agent after the year. Well, Burns is going to be tagged, whether the Panthers keep him or not. He's going to be tagged, and it would cost a one and then some to get him from the Panthers. And then Danielle Hunter is 29 years old. So, like as far as just getting a pass rusher that you can build around, it's either you get him high in the draft or you find a way to trade for one. And a 2 isn't a horrible price for one if you can get him re-signed. And that to me, I think would be like the primary issue here. It's not giving up a 2 to get him. Like I think that could wind up looking pretty good if Montez Sweat keeps playing the way that he's played the last few years and stays on the trajectory that he's been on. How much leverage do he and his agent have now? And you can tag him after the year, but are you talking about $25 million a year, $30 million a year? Like, what are we talking about signing him for? So, it's definitely an interesting situation for the Bears. Like, and I don't mind paying that price to get a 25-year-old pass rusher who's had double-digit sack seasons. I think the contract thing makes it a little tricky for the Bears going forward, and that's regardless of who's calling the shots in March.
Now, I was looking to see if Chase Young is one of the Buckeyes on your wall behind you. He is not, but does that mean that he stays? Is that what that means?
I think my understanding is the Commanders are listening on everybody right now. So,
really? Why?
They're
what's up
Chase
with
Young.
that? I mean, they're in the mix, aren't they, or no?
I mean, Chase Young, Jacoby Brissett is another one that I know they fielded some phone calls on.
Okay.
It makes you wonder, and I don't know this part for sure, but it makes you wonder how involved the owner is now. Josh Harris coming in there, very big into analytics. Like we know that from his time with the Sixers, right? Like,
yes.
And very big in kind of trying to be forward thinking. And, I do know, Chase Young's had some injury issues, and the knee injury of a couple of years ago was really, really bad, Rich. Like he's having a good year, but really, really bad knee injury. So, are you planning on re-signing him? Because to me, that's the operative question. If you're Josh Harris, is like, are we comfortable giving him $20, $25, $30 million a year? And if because of the knee we aren't, well, then are we better off just moving him now? So I think that's the question they're asking on Chase. Obviously, with some of the quarterback injuries, Jacoby Brissett would draw some interest from teams across the league. I think the asking price on him is a little high right now, but the Commanders, I think the Commanders have been active on the phones the last couple of days, which tells me like the owner is involved in their strategy at this point. And I think part of it is, protecting himself and the franchise against the idea that, that guys like Martin Mayhew and Ron Rivera and Marty Herney might be in their best interest to just worry about the here and now.
Albert Breer here on the Rich Eisen Show. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah in Minnesota had no idea that his trade deadline 24, 48-hour period would be in search of a quarterback. I mean, that's so, best laid plans. It's not like he had a plan for what happens if Kirk Cousins blows out his Achilles 2 days before the trade deadline as we get back to 500, but walk me through the mindset of the Vikings trade deadline approach to a quarterback.
It's about the most interesting situation I've ever, I can remember seeing a team in, where this was not just on paper, but by their actions, this was their reset year. If you look at it, they won 13 games last year. I think they deserve a lot of credit for being able to kind of maintain well-reasoned strategy and not go overboard and looking at last year. And they took on nearly $40 million in dead cap this year to clean out their salary cap. They offloaded some veterans that they really liked, and Eric Kendricks and Dalvin Cook and Adam Thielen. They had other veterans like Harrison Smith take pay cuts. this was the reset year. And it started that way. It started at 1-4, and now it's, okay, like we really are in the reset, and we're potentially going to be sellers at the deadline. And then they win 3 games in a row. It's like, okay, like maybe we'll back off of that a little bit, and then a quarterback gets hurt. So it's complicated, 6 ways from Sunday now. And so I think they will be, looking at the idea of a quarterback. They want to reward their locker room, like, again, like I talked about this with the Cardinals. Like those guys really like the culture where it's at right now. The guys in charge there. And so they don't want to send the message to their locker room that they're waving white flags here at all. Now, if somebody comes and offers a first or a second for Daniil Hunter, they'd listen to that. But this won't be some fire sale. And if there is an opportunity to upgrade the quarterback position and give the guys in that locker room a chance, I think Kevin O'Connell would like to do that. So it's a complicated position to be in. And, again, like I think the idea of trading for a Kyler Murray would go against a lot of different things we've seen there. But
that's a lot right there, Albert. I mean, that's a significant financial foray, and then you're taking somebody who's hurt. But so that's why, I mean, the idea would be, why not Trey Lance, who is from the Shanahan system, from the state of Minnesota, sitting there third on a depth chart. It might not take too long to get him up to speed for a team, and won't cost you very much. You just tell Jerry, we'll upgrade your fifth that you coughed up for a 3, like that's the
what
sort
it
of stuff.
be.
Jameis, if the Saints would ever do such a thing, you know what I mean? Like that's the sort of stuff I'm throwing out there.
I don't mind the idea. I mean, I think it's a good idea, Rich. Like, so they gave up a 5 for him. So you say, okay, like, well, we'll give you a 3. So then Jerry gets to move a pick up 2 rounds for his troubles. And, I really would advocate for teams taking swings at the position. Like, if you want to go back in history, that's how John Schneider has found both of his quarterbacks, right? Like, if you look at it, like when they got to Seattle, Pete Carroll and John Schneider, they took a million swings before they hit on Russell Wilson, right?
Right, yeah.
They kept swinging. They swung on Charlie Whitehurst. They swung
on
Jackson. Tavares Jackson. They swung on Matt Flynn, right? Like, and they wound up with Russell Wilson. And then it was the same thing with Geno. Like, they took a swing on Drew Lock and wound up with Geno Smith. You know what I mean? Like, so they, I think it's always a good strategy to do that at that position. And let's say if you're the Vikings, it's like, God, Kirk looked really good this year. And he did, over the first 8 games. We'd like to bring him back as kind of a placeholder after this year. Maybe Kirk, because he's coming off the Achilles, wants to do that. And maybe because you're too good to be picking in the top 15 or 20, you're not going to get a shot at the quarterback that you want in the draft. It makes sense to keep swinging, right? So you got Jaron Hall from BYU in there. Take a swing on Trey Lance. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, that's okay. But at least you got to swing on it. He's got some background in your system because of what Kevin O'Connell is doing in Minnesota. Isn't that disparate from, what from what Kyle Shanahan does in San Francisco? So you have, a quarterback coming in with some background. I don't mind the idea of taking a swing on a talented young kid. It's not a bad idea. That to me is like, you're like a really a responsible way to potentially address the quarterback position for right now, put another body in the room, and then, maybe look at it as like, hey, we're taking a swing here for the future too.
Yeah, big Nick Mullins comes back off of injured reserve, him and Jaron Hall in there. I mean, that's not a bad way to try and wrap up 2023 and even maybe make a run at the division. That's what I'm thinking about here. Before I let you go, Albert, let's talk about the Raiders. It's 3-5, so it's not like desperate, like 1-7, right?
Yeah, but I heard what you said about Devontae.
Right.
I agree with you.
You know what I mean? And so you got a player who's incredibly special in Devontae Adams, who clearly is not happy. The team apparently had that open air meeting with everybody, and that didn't work. And the fan base is pissed off. I mean, this photograph from Monday Night Football in Detroit, somebody wearing Raiders gear holding up a sign that says, "Just fire Josh," with the Raiders logo there. What do you think Mark Davis is thinking right now?
Well, let's start with Josh. Let's start with Devontae.
Sure.
Do you remember how Stephon Diggs got traded?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do you remember how that happened though? Like, he tweeted something that morning,
right?
And Brandon Beane was like, "Oh, like maybe I should make a phone call here.
Mm-hmm.
And like 10 hours later, he was traded. So I know the Raiders' stance has been they're not moving him. No way, no how, we're not doing it. But if you're Buffalo or you're Kansas City or you're, I don't know, name a team.
Well,
you know,
I gave my top 5 teams that should trade for him. Number 1 was Baltimore.
Jacksonville.
You know, Jacksonville could do it too. I don't know. I like their receivers. I don't know if they.
I like their receivers too, but the idea of like, hey, we got a quarterback on a rookie contract and we're 6-2. Let's go for it. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
And now we're rolling Devontae Adams out there with Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk, and let's go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Saints, you know, get him back with his college buddy, you know, like go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
You
so the reason I bring up the Diggs thing is because like a lot of times teams don't have intentions to trade someone and something like this happens. And then all of a sudden the calls start coming in, you know? And so I think that's at least something worth considering here. Again, the Raiders' intention has been to like, we're not doing it, but you know, maybe somebody can blow them away today, the same way someone could blow like Denver away on Patrick Surtain. You know, I think that I think the Raiders people have been pretty open about this. There was I'd say a miscalculation on where the roster was coming out of 2021. And, you know, Josh and Dave Ziegler, you know, showed it with their actions and trading for Devontae when they did and, you know, making the move for Chandler Jones. Those are like moves that like scream we're close. And I think over the course of last year, they found out they weren't that close. And so now it sort of feels like they're tangled between, all right, we need to build for the future, but we've got a lot of players in the roster, not just Devontae, but Max Crosby and Colton Miller and Josh Jacobs. We've got all these players in the roster that are part of this core of what could be a really good team right now. And I think they're trying to figure out how to untangle that now. And look, like I think Mark Davis went so deep in, and I've spent time in that building over the last couple of years, went so deep in on Josh McDaniels' way of doing things, right? Like, and that building is like, it is Josh McDaniels' program, and the people from top to bottom are Josh's people.
Right.
And so if you're pulling the plug on that, you're talking about a full organizational reset. So I don't think he wants to pull the plug on it right now. However, they have had meetings post-game over the last few weeks, the same way he'd have his meetings with Gruden. And, you know, I don't think Mark is real happy about where things are right now. And so, you know, Josh has learned a lot, you know, from his time in Denver and then his second stint in New England. And, you know, I think it's on him now to make sure that there's a long-term vision here. Because you saw what I did last night. Like Jimmy didn't look good at all. You know, like Jimmy looks hurt, to be honest with you. It doesn't look right. And, you know, missing those deep balls to Devontae, it's egregious, you know, and the defense is playing better, but it's not enough. Offensive line looks messy, you know, and so, you know, certainly I think, you know, Mark Davis, I don't think he's afraid to put pressure on his people. We saw that with Gruden. We saw that, you know, with guys there previous, guys like Jack Del Rio. And, you know, I do think that there's pressure on Josh to at least set out a long-term vision for where he's taking this thing post 2023.
Well, their next game's home against the Giants. That won't be seen by much of the country, but the next game against the Jets on a Sunday night will. And that's where
no standalone games, Rich. You know, like
that is, no doubt. No doubt. Like that's next. And then they're at Miami versus Kansas City before a bye, which could be bye-bye if they don't sweep New York. So they also don't seem to have the ability to sweep too much right now. That's the issue.
I mean, there's no like after the way they played last night, like, are you willing to call any game a layup? You can't. No, right? You can't. No,
not if Daniel Jones comes back and shows up like the Daniel Jones that showed up in Minnesota last year. Honestly, like these things week to week in this league, as you know, totally crazy. And possible. But Albert, thanks for the time. Greatly appreciate it. Yeah. You, sir, are the man, and we'll see you soon.
Absolutely. All right, Rich. Thank you.
You got Albert Breer with shots fired to start our conversation, and then we rallied. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.